Hey, Mr. Co-Chairman. You're on mute. I can't hear you.
Is that better?
It is better.
Okay. I got a new tablet. I broke the other one.
Oh, no.
Yes, I put it under too much stress of all this zooming.
Yeah. I understand.
With no kind of ceremony, it just stopped functioning.
No notice, no nothing, right?
No time to notice. I had most of my stuff on there on the SD card, so I didn't lose any mission critical data. But all of my cute backgrounds and stuff, they're gone.
Hi, Julie.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Do y'all get to take any time off?
What a concept.
No, they're still all the they, whoever they is. I'm still having to do things. So I'm not quite there yet. I'm hoping next week will be quieter.
Yeah, this week I thought this week was going to be slow, but this week ended up being just nonstop.
Yes.
Hey, Maddie.
Hey, Maddie.
All right.
Ron, did you see David's email this morning? I just responded to it, so I brought it kind of back up to the top of your email box.
Let me take a look.
Natalie, did he respond to you about any changes he made? Because I didn't see a response.
He did.
Okay.
He did. Thank you for asking. Yeah, and I kind of was surprised, honestly, when I saw all.
We're at 6 o'clock. Should we give it another minute or two?
Do we have a quorum? Who all is here? Okay. All right.
Folks still logging in here.
Okay.
Got 15 committee members right now.
Okay. We'll give them a minute or so, but I see some icons still populating.
I want to know how it's so bright at Natalie's house still.
So what you call a virtual background, PJ. I'm sitting out on my front porch. Not really, but.
I'm gonna have to find that little icon after this all over with.
Hello, friends. How are y'all today?
Hey, Tom Emoton.
Yeah, is that what it does say that? Doggone it. It's supposed to have my professional name on there.
Well, anyone that wants to rename themselves, you can hover over your photo in the upper right-hand corner. There's 3 dots, ... And you can click on the ... And one of the options there is rename.
Okay, great. Let me do that then. That's not it. Are we early?
No.
Yeah, we're 6:02.
Okay.
I just cannot find a good place for this camera.
You would think after all these months, we've all got this mastered, right? But no. That's I just played with my lighting for my evening Zooms. I haven't had to do too many, after dark Zooms. Now it's so bright. What do we have? 3 more days, 4 more days before the days start getting longer again?
Yeah,
Thank
22nd.
you.
Yeah.
I got to remember to go get me a new telescope for this conjunction. Yeah, the conjunction on the 21st.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
And find some place that doesn't have a lot of unnatural lighting so we can see it. I don't know where that's going to be. Have to find some island.
What is it on the 21st?
The conjunction, Saturn and
Oh,
is
yeah.
it Jupiter?
Yes.
See that.
Yeah, Saturn and Jupiter. They've been marching across the sky toward each other all week.
You can wait 800 more years and see it again.
Nah, I don't think we want to do that.
Sounds about right.
What do we think? We're after 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and record and everything we are doing from this point forward. We'll broadcast, walk us through our agenda.
Okay.
Thanks, Warren. So your audio was a little wonky there, but but I think we ended up hearing it all. Welcome everyone to our final meeting of the Clean Energy Task Force. Wanted to run through our agenda to start. Our intent is hopefully we'll be celebrating the completion of the task force tonight and voting on the report to send to City Council. So we'll start with a quick little celebration from all of you about what you're optimistic, excited about. We will go through the whole report. It's been sent to you and you've had it for about a week, and we'll be getting any last feedback for changes or concerns or questions. We'll take a vote and then talk about next steps and acknowledgements before we wrap up. We, as always, even though this is our last meeting, some of us will hang around at the end for any questions, networking, or chit chat. So once we adjourn, if anyone wants to stay after, we can do that as well. So we wanted to start the meeting by thinking about all we've accomplished. And I'm going to turn it over to Maddie to talk about how we're going to have you share what you're excited about.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Julie. So some of you may be familiar with this, but there's a tool on Zoom where you can set up a whiteboard and annotate it. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll be sharing my screen and it'll be a whiteboard. And then all of you should be able to draw on it, type on it. If you're seeing what I'm seeing, you see a whiteboard and then there's text, there's draw, you can change brush stroke, you can choose the different colors. And so we just open it up we just want to take a couple minutes here, and we thought this would be a fun way to just, you can type something, you could draw something, but we'd love to hear what you're excited about, what you're proud about coming out of this task force. We've done this all virtually over the past couple of months, which is really pretty incredible. And someone is already typing on it. That is great. Oh, okay. That's the title. But I'll just start by doing a little example. I'm just going to draw a little smiley face here. And someone else is typing too. So we'll just spend a couple of minutes. And if you're having trouble, feel free to speak up or put in the chat and we can type for you as well. And, also feel free to just, if anyone wants to share out loud, that's great too.
There's a hush fell over the room.
So if you haven't found the drop down, when you're looking at the very top of your screen in the bright green, it says you're viewing Maddie Shea's screen. To the right of it, it has a view options drop down, and go down almost to the bottom and it says annotate. And you click on annotate, then a toolbar shows up at the top, just under that.
I got my wires crossed there. Could you say it enough?
And if anyone is having trouble with that, feel free to also type in the chat, and Maddie or I can pop it onto there.
And Matt, I saw your note here in the chat. I'm not actually certain if it will work on the Zoom app. I haven't used the Zoom app myself very much, but if there's anything you want us to type for you, just we can do that.
All right, I think I found it. There's a little pencil in the lower left-hand corner. My personal computer is just really old, so I was having issues with the webcam, so that's why I've just been using my phone the whole time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. So if you, we saw someone's typing in red. If you go over to the format button, you can change the color. You can make it bold or italicized.
And Maddie, you should be able to move if someone wrote on top of someone else. You should be able to move that.
All right, thanks, Julie.
And if you can tell me how to change the font, can you get rid of the, yeah, thank you. Can you shrink this thing down to something reasonable? And I can't spell my own last name, I see.
Let's see how I can change the font.
Yeah, that's, thank you. And put the S on the end of my name if you don't mind that you hit that. Thank you.
Yeah,
so y'all can see it. I'll go ahead and read some of them. Well,
great.
Yeah. Everyone's been so engaged, great teamwork, clean energy can add good jobs, a clean energy future, new technologies and clean energy, seeing the recommendations actually implemented, energy efficiency, so much education and learning, Fountain Works rocks, thank you. Experiencing the plan, transfer into action. The report is emerging science of collaborating and telecommuting. Great work by citizens that care about their city, centering this work around the social equity lens, meaningful change resulting from these recommendations, meeting new people, electrification of transportation, meeting so many awesome people in our community who care, innovation, understanding the city's energy needs and efficiency, great group, wishing all a joyous, happy holiday season. And it was wonderful to experience to do this and meet new people, new friendships. And then I love that people are putting some hearts and stars and arrows to reiterate some things. I'm happy to have a solid foundation for our city and community to grow, improve our environmental footprint.
So we'll save this whiteboard and send it back out and include it in the final meeting summary, just so I know it's kind of silly, but it's also nice to have a record of all these great little remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, we thought this would be a good way to start the meeting with all the awesome work that you all have done and what you all are excited about. So a lot of themes there and moving forward and wanting to see the recommendations actually implemented.
Yes.
So with that, I will turn it over to our co-chairs, Ron Sparks and Natalie English. And I think, Ron, you're gonna kick us off next.
At our November meeting, we reviewed our recommendations and looked at a draft report. David has been working hard over the past several weeks and last night and this morning, compiling all our feedback. And the report you've seen is the product of that. And at our last meeting with the committee, we shifted the time farther out. That's why we were meeting tonight instead of a few weeks ago. So everybody have a chance to review and digest everything. So with that, David, you want to brief us on any changes?
Sure. Thanks, Ron. As Ron mentioned, we've been putting together the report over the last couple of weeks. Received a lot of great feedbacks and comments from all of you. So I appreciate that. Hoping to really kind of hone the report into what we want to finally present to City Council. I would say just kind of going over since the first draft was provided to you all. There were certainly some edits within the acknowledgements section, just to include everybody's correct contact information as far as any certifications. Anybody else wants anything additional added to those sections, please let me know, along with your names. That's easy to add in there without any, certainly major structural changes. One of the other comments we had was just in regard to the first steps and future steps. Initially, people weren't being able to tie in kind of which goals went with each subcommittee. So I broke it out in regard to the section of the report that each of the subcommittees recommendations could be found in, and broke it down and organized it first steps for each of the committees, and as well as for the future steps, organized it in the same way. I kind of broke it down by subcommittees, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to, for when the City Council reads through here, to be able to go back into the main report and gather additional information about each of the recommendations. And obviously we'll be able to go in and talk in a little bit more detail about each of the recommendations once we kind of get through this overview period. So I think there'll certainly be some discussion around some of the areas that we probably need to have some more discussion on. One thing I left in kind of highlighted on page 9 of the current report is under future steps, actions the city can undertake in the left next number of years in highlight, just so we can perhaps have a little discussion about, what do we consider next number of years? Is that, 5 to 10 year frame set, or, obviously we have goals going all the way out to 2050. So I just wanted a little bit input from to hear what you all had to say in regard to that. I think we'll get into each section here as we work through it, but I added some additional information in regard to current city energy and fuel use, just to kind of give some, I just kind of wanted to be able to give council kind of an idea what we were talking about when, what it would take, for instance, to offset 100% of our electricity. What kind of, how many rooftop solar systems that would be, or how many acres of land would we be talking about? So they at least kind of have a little picture in their mind, perhaps, of the scale we're talking about. Also, just kind of some information in regard to Duke's energy mix for the foreseeable future. That'll be interesting to see what their new IRP has to say, if there's any difference in their projections. I anticipate there will be, so perhaps there's some information in the report here we'll be able to update once that next IRP comes out early next year. And I included some additional information just in regard to our fleet fuel usage. Again, I just wanted to put in a few different scenarios looking at the impact various reduction scenarios in our fleet would be, since that's a large portion of our greenhouse gas emissions, and obviously a big portion of our fossil fuel usage. So kind of wanted to give some ideas in there. And then just through the rest of the reports, it was basically just including some of the edits that you all provided back. Obviously, there were a few just formatting issues we had to deal with, trying to get all the different sections looking somewhat the same as for our fonts and spacings and all of that, as well as just kind of firming up some of the ideas within there. And I included a section just on the public survey, just kind of wanted to put a refresher in there in regard to what our citizens, kind of that snapshot of what their view was on all of this process. And I think it was a very positive support for this effort. So I think that should give some more weight behind the report, that it's the citizens in the area are behind it. Yeah, I think those are kind of the main changes that were made. And obviously, yeah, we'll get into each section as we read through it, but why don't we switch over to that section and get going with that, Natalie?
Great. Thanks, David, so much. And David, you have done a yeoman's job over the last few weeks putting all of this together. So many people have done so much research and written so many words. And I know it was, while there was some cutting and pasting going on, we know that you've been working really hard, and we appreciate your investment of time in helping us to present a task force report that we all love. Exactly, Tom. Everybody give David a big hand. So you guys have all seen the report. The edits that David has talked about are not substantive, but certainly if you look through them and they bother you, you should bring that up. So we, again, incorporated some feedback. We want to spend some time now with going over we'll talk a broad overview of each section, and then each section, there is some feedback that has not yet been incorporated because the planning committee believed it required some time and some conversation amongst task force members. So if you did not hear David mention your feedback, it's not because we're not going to discuss it. This is the time that we will. So we're going to go through and again, do that broad overview section by section, so that each of you will have that opportunity to share. So I think, Ron, you're going to start this part?
The sections we're going to take initially is going to be acknowledgments and definitions. If you have it, well, you got to come on your screen now.
And I've heard it from a few of you today, and a few of you just in the last day or two in regard to those changes. And I think not probably the one that's right in front of you here on screen, but my copy that I'm working on here, which I didn't want to resend this afternoon since we already had a copy in front of all of you, but I have been able to incorporate some of those acknowledgement changes.
I did notice you got a few more PEs on the list. Very good.
Does anyone on the task force have any other thoughts or concerns or suggestions for these two sections?
I appreciate you putting the definitions on the front. That way, as people proceed through the document, they would have seen some of these terms before they hit them cold in the document.
I had put some comments, and I've talked with David about this, so I don't know if he's incorporating, but there were quite a few as I read through terms that I didn't know, and some that I did, but I know some of my friends wouldn't necessarily know. So I ended up highlighting quite a few terms to add to that list in the beginning, because there are a lot of, there's a lot of stuff that we've covered that I know very little or nothing about. So I was like, oh, what's that term? And I had to look it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I got your highlighted comments back this afternoon, Matt, and we'll get those in there as well.
Cool, thanks.
Very good. Anything else on these two sections? Okay, Natalie.
So next, we're going to scroll down to the executive summary. And this includes the clean energy goals, and then the first steps and the future steps. So if anyone has, maybe we start with the, certainly with that box right there in the middle, our clean energy goals. David and the staff and the planning committee did some work in listening to all of the feedback we've received from you guys. And so they look different than they did the last time we saw them as a full group. So I really wanted to make sure you all had an opportunity to weigh in on the way we've rewritten them in hopes of addressing the feedback that we received. Any comments, any questions, any concerns with those?
Just
Seems good to me.
comment, Natalie, it says here that the city will collaborate with other local governments. We may want to say state and local, or just governments generally. There are going to be programs at the federal and state level that we may want to collaborate with them.
I think that's a good
I don't
point.
want to limit it to just local governments necessarily.
I think it's a good idea. Good point. Thank you for catching
And
that.
just, late breaking news is the new EPA administrator potentially will be Michael Regan from here in North Carolina, who knows us well. There may be EPA opportunities that we need to look at as well. Just as a broad statement, we're very energy focused. We may want to think about some EPA opportunities.
Good point. Thank you. Unless somebody has a concern with, I would just recommend we delete the word local.
That'll cover it.
With other governments works.
Any other comments or concerns specifically about our clean energy goals? Okay, hearing none, first steps, and certainly any of the language before we get to the recommendations and first steps, we're open to hearing about as well. But first steps.
So we talked about establishing an ongoing clean energy committee. Would it, and maybe it's later in the section in the paper, do we want to say, I heard recommendations that it was citizens energy committees. Is it a committee of experts? At some point, do we want to put some definition around that for the council? Or do we want to leave it up to them to determine it?
I wouldn't want to shackle them too tight on this at this stage. The way they pull this team together that we have now kind of gives us good thinking that they will get a nice cross section of folks to be on such a committee. So I don't know if you really want to tie their hands this early, but if you want a time,
I don't have a feeling one way or the other. So
I can't remember, David, you've had your eyes on these words for so long. Is there more detail about how a committee ought to be made up? And while I don't disagree with Ron, we don't want to tie their hands. And I think they showed good mind around how to put a committee together for this time. I wonder if there is any. So I wouldn't want it to just be a staff committee. Right. I think we would want to make sure that there's citizen involvement in whatever future committee, and certainly expert involvement. So I don't know I can't remember what the more wordy recommendations that came from a couple of subcommittees might have said.
Yeah, this is Beth Hanson. We have a little more language about it in our recommendations. Talking about having experts and all community members, but experts and individuals representing our community and partners. So
okay.
So I think it covers it further down then.
Yeah, let's make sure that happens. That's fine.
Cool. Thanks.
This is Tom. I have just one comment. Generally speaking, when the council creates these types of committees, they're referred to as advisory because they aren't statutorily required. So I would suggest that it, again, that be included. Advisory committee, and the idea of a cross section of membership, experts, interested citizens, and so forth should be, the details should be somewhere, because I think that will give some flavor to what this group of now seasoned experts thinks would be effective in helping to work with the city staff and council to refine and implement the work that's been done thus far.
What if I just change that bullet to establish a diverse, ongoing clean energy advisory committee?
I like that.
Okay.
Does that work?
I would put inclusive in there too, Dave.
Okay.
At least I'm suggesting that the group whose recommendation should comment on it too.
I like those words added. Thanks, Ruth. So why don't we, so is there anything in the Clean Energy Technology Subcommittee, these recommendations for first steps that concerns anyone or that they want to make a comment on? Team, you guys did a great job. The NC Policy and Legislation Subcommittee recommendations, any comments, any suggestions? Okay, good job, folks. Social Equity and Community Adoption Subcommittee recommendations.
Yes, I've got 1 point. I believe it's the 3rd bullet point down. I'm not sure if this is referencing, I'm pretty sure because we rated them based on the FountainWorks rubric, that this is specifically looking at the opportunity that we had outlined for the effect of air pollution impact, screening new industries for disproportionate air pollution impacts on low income and minority communities and workers. And that is exactly how it is later on in the report. And everything else at the top for the first steps mirrors exactly what's lowered, what is found further down in the report. So I was hoping we could adjust that to have that social equity lens and really focus on the communities that the Social Equity and Community Engagement Subcommittee was centering in that recommendation.
Yeah, we can certainly adjust language to be, more inclusive and supportive of that recommendation. Would love to hear some more. I'm trying to get to that point in the report so I can reference it.
I think part of the reason the language changed here is because this was what could be done as a first step, and that everything, creating a whole new screening tool was probably not going to be a first step. It was something that would need further examination. So it was trying to sort of parse out what could be in the first step versus the future steps. Tom, I don't know if I'm interpreting that right based on our conversations.
Yes, that's a good point, Julie. I think the other point, while it's not one of the early priorities, is the shift towards clean energy, renewable energy. A residual benefit to the community, or primary benefit to the community, is better environmental quality, which also includes air. That particular goal actually has as its focus air quality first. I think if it were framed in a way where the emphasis was on clean energy or renewable energy as something that could be implemented that will result in an improvement of air quality, it may be able to elevate. But I think the thought of a evaluation component to assess air quality and the others is a longer term endeavor that I can't envision that being able to be accomplished. We're trying to do what I thought was like the low hanging fruit as the early priorities, first steps. And that one clearly doesn't seem like it will be a low hanging fruit, easy to implement with so forth.
With that lens, I think that's the appropriate way to do. The way it is written currently is appropriate for the shorter term.
Respectfully, if we're not setting up a screening tool as a first step and kind of taking those proactive measures to look at what the existing impacts are, that's where I was thinking to have that as the first step. We've provided a lot of databases and sets of information in our recommendations that would kind of help with that. So that's where we were coming from, whereas a first step, we'd be able to put something together as a tool that's looking at these things. I completely agree that the mitigation of these health impacts is for sure a longer term solution, but it seems like, to get us started on that, the first step would be to create that screening tool.
That's a good point. I would also point out that first and foremost, this was an organizational focus endeavor, looking at city facilities and then the fleet. So, in many ways, those early first steps will be focused in those areas. As you expand out into the community in terms of impact and policy and other aspects, those are really what I would call extra organizational, meaning they're outside of the organization. And again, see those endeavors, and this is just me speaking, as one member of the manager's staff, but certainly if the council would have asked me, I would say, well, our first focus was what things can we do as an organization to change our carbon greenhouse gas footprint, as well as shift more activities and facilities and fleet to a clean renewable energy. And then you see, as we move out into our exterior ring, there becomes other impacts that we can have beyond the organization. At least that's my logic, and I'd be interested to hear others.
I'm listening.
Well, and I would add, I don't want to discount the work that the committee did. They have a tremendous amount of data and research that will be very informative. But I saw this first. The driver behind it initially was the U.S. Mayor's Conference of 100% Clean and Renewable Energy. And as we look across many templates, the focus first and foremost is on organizational impact on the environment and the activities. And we had some early discussion as a task force about whether it was just simply organizational, or could we look into the community? Does anyone else recall those discussions? And I think there was sort of a tacit consensus that first it would be organizationally. However, we wouldn't be opposed to looking at what influence the city could use. I think someone called it the bully pulpit to impact other areas of the region.
Ashley, did you want to hop in?
Yeah, I apologize. I had my internet is going in and out, and I actually missed the whole entire first part of this conversation. But what I did catch was that the focus is going to initially be organizationally. I understand that to mean within the city. I guess I have a couple questions. The first question is, if we work for the next, what the plan is for, 2030, 2050, if we work for these next few decades on making Wilmington green,
Ashley, you're cutting out.
Wilmington are not also clean. That's my first question.
Ashley, we heard if we work for the next few decades to make Wilmington green, and then you cut out.
Yeah, thank you. Are we not defeating the purpose if we don't put safeguards in place to ensure that industries that come to Wilmington are not also green, or at least if not green, at least not giving disproportionate impacts on citizens. That's my first
I don't think we got a
question. And my second question, if we're talking about starting organizations, there's no issue. Go ahead.
Ashley, your second, can you start over with your second comment?
Yeah, my second question was, if we are in support, I see that one of the goals that made it was to encourage backyard composting. For being technical, that in itself is not necessarily an organizational project, right? Like that would be very much in the community. That wouldn't be the city of Wilmington necessarily building or in city, what would be within the community. Problem with that one objective.
Actually, that program is already in place. In fact, we have on a future upcoming council agenda to receive an award to grant funds for backyard composting. And so while it's not a city operation, and what I really mean by city organizational is the operations of police, fire, community services, public services, that's the primary focus. Then the second part being the facilities that the city constructs to be utilized by citizens or staff. So that's the primary focus. But I take your point about backyard composting. However, council's already signed off on it. So it is really a short term first step. And I think what by having it in this report is simply suggesting continue it. But again, it's incentivizing and giving dollars away to encourage giving the equipment away necessary for folks to implement a backyard composting program. It's focused on incentivizing. No policy requirement that they do it. Purely voluntary.
Ron,
I understand. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you for that clarity. I just did want to circle back around again. I apologize because I missed the first half of this. But in the main objective, right? In our main objectives at the top of the document.
Hold on.
Keep going.
Promoting.
Ashley, we heard in the main objectives at the top of the document.
Right, promoting clean energy and reducing harmful energy-related environmental impacts. Creating strategy. If we are focused on reducing harmful energy-related environmental impacts, it seems like the onus would be on us to at least present that. And if they pass to all, then they can reject it. If this socially equitable strategy benefits all residents, that means clearly not anything that would have proportionate impacts on residents. Again, those are our charges, and it feels like we try to step up to charge with to leave it out and say that we should wait until later. I don't understand why we're that.
Ashley, I lost most of what you said.
Me too.
Yeah, I could get a few seconds of each word.
Ashley. Ashley. Oh, go ahead, Maddie. Sorry.
Sorry.
No.
I just emailed the dial-in information just in case you need to call in on the phone.
Okay, thank you.
This is the, oh, sorry, Andrea, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, yeah, I think I was picking up what Ashley was saying. So I was just going to reiterate. She was just pulling from the very top of the charter, how the entire report starts out, pulling in that as part of our charter for the subcommittee work was to promote clean energy, reduce harmful energy-related environmental impacts, and create a socially equitable strategy that benefits all residents. And so that being our charter, that's where we feel really strongly that as the work that our subcommittee did, that we are keeping it in the report as such, that we're not providing I don't want to say loopholes. That's not the right term for this, but it's just that it's our charge as the Clean Energy Task Force to say this is what this is what we're looking to do, not that we're leaving openings for by leaving the language a little bit more ambiguous, it seems to leave an opening for things that might not have this interest at the center of it. And go ahead, Lindsay. I didn't mean to cut you off. Thanks.
No, I was just thinking that, we've been having some of these same conversations internally at CFPUA with some of the work that we just did with our rate structure and trying to decide if our rates were equitable or not. And I'm wondering if maybe some of the confusion is like how maybe people are interpreting tools differently. Because one of the things, like what the first part of us, I know at CFPUA looking at whether we were doing things that were equitable was like actually going and doing a deep dive in our own data and in our own decision-making processes. And that very much is an organizational tool, right? And then, so I do agree with you, Andrea, that like how you define screening tool absolutely could be considered an organizational, like priority and something within the city organization. So do you want to clarify what kind of things we're talking about maybe, and maybe that would help the conversation like move forward a little bit?
The screening tool that we were talking about.
Yeah, and maybe I missed it, so I'm not sure.
No, that's okay. It's fleshed out in a lot more detail further down in the report under the individual opportunity. I'm pulling it up. It is on page. The opportunity starts on page 34 in the document. I don't know if you're able to quickly scoot down there. Thank you, Maddie.
So while Maddie's scrolling, I'll just say some of the structure of the report. David has kept the entirety of all of the different subcommittee reports and their language intact. So it is there for the council and staff to continue exploring. The planning committee initially was only going to have two things as the first steps, and that was going to be create a ongoing advisory committee and evaluate all of the other recommendations that are included. David tried to elevate some of the ones that could be done more quickly, and it ended up a lot got elevated. And so I think that's where maybe some of the tension is. The entirety of the issue is opportunity is still here for future consideration. It's really a matter of what should be put out there up front, as these are the things that should be happening first that don't require extra, staffing and financial investment. It's supposed to be the low-hanging fruit.
That's helpful, Julie. And Lindsay, just to kind of put a brief sort of explanation of what the tool would be, is that there are mapping tools to look at areas of significant air pollution. And there are tools to go in and which we've included, I believe it should be in the report. We went in and we had a separate meeting where we were looking at all the individual mappings of different areas in the community that were impacted by pollution in this way. Sorry, my dog is just crying right now and it's so distracting. And so as a result, with the map that we have, with the information that we have, we were looking at, based on all the data that you see here, that there is a way to be able to go and look at these areas that have been historically disproportionately impacted, and to reduce that from, trying to screen, looking at this area and see how we can mitigate those areas from being impacted further. So a lot of these tools already exist. It was a matter of, having a staffing position, perhaps where this is under the purview of that, to be able to look at it And so it's not so much of like building a new screening tool from scratch. It was more of utilizing the data and research and everything that is available currently to then apply that and look at other industries that were within, the city limits.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important. And I guess too, like that same tool could be used to see if there are any like city operations or facilities that are also causing undue or inequitable impacts in those areas. So
Now, this information is still going to be in the report on page 34. Is the issue trying to push this information out to the executive summary?
Yes, it's just to keep it as it was written.
Okay, I commented earlier, I don't know if you was around, that I didn't feel this should be in the report, but in the executive summary, our mission is the Clean Energy Task Force to reduce energy consumption. Now, a byproduct of fossil fuel operation is poor air quality. That's one of the NOx and all the other stuff that goes on. But and this, what I'm reading here is saying that that the city of Wilmington is going to be screening industries for their carbon footprint. Now, is that something the city is in a position to do, or is that something that we'll maybe asking for something that the city can't do? We have a relationship with the Committee of 100 and other such. I don't think they call the Committee 100 anymore. Excuse me. Wilmington Industrial Development. Tell how old I am. And with the confusion we had a few years ago with Titan and all these other things, this is not that document. This is we are trying to guide the city of Wilmington in their operations on how to clean, and also in our long-term goal, which this is a part of, 2050 goal, to be able to get cleaner industries in. Sadly, New Hannibal County and Wilmington don't have a lot of footprint for new industry, sadly. But I don't think it should be in the executive summary bullet points highlighted as something we're going to demand of folks when they bring in industries in. My opinion.
Well, let me speak up. I'm in favor of keeping it in the executive summary in order to bring this to the attention of the politicians on the city council who are going to stand for election. I do think the history of industries that we've invited in since I got here in 2012 it has been pretty faulty. I can think of the drywall operation that was producing formaldehyde in big amounts, and I can think of the rail car industry, which was going to anneal the rail cars using natural gas in huge amounts before it went bankrupt. The city dumped a lot of money into that operation, which went elsewhere, or it's gone entirely. So a simple look at those two industries from a point of view of what's coming out of the product, what's going into the product by an energy committee would have avoided a big expense to the city for industries that have essentially failed. So I'm supportive of Andrea's position on this matter.
So this is Ruth. I'm going to take the counter position. I believe that the way it says it in the introduction states exactly what your outcome is. Your outcome is to look at focusing on business development and recruitment on businesses in the clean energy sector. Perhaps we expand that to say that support clean energy. That leaves it open and allows us to go back later in the document to talk at greater length in a section where it's appropriate. The reality is these types of issues are regulated at the federal and state level. The city does not have the authority to regulate. Yes, it has the authority to designate incentives, generally in the sense of tax reductions when jobs are created, not cash given to these companies. That's a very big misunderstanding. I think it's an appropriate, at the executive level, summary level, this is an appropriate saying, and leaving the greater detail later in the report is fine. I don't know how you're going to resolve differences, but if it's a motion, I would move that we leave it as is. But I'll leave it to others to comment as well.
Yeah, this is PJ. I'm not going to add much verbiage other than I echo Ruth's comment.
Okay.
And I'll just
All right.
kind of repeat what we were trying as a planning committee is to capture what we thought could go as an early step. If I think the sense is there's enough concern about it, if we use the exact verbiage from the social equity committee report, it wouldn't be able to stay in that first step section. It would have to be pushed to the future step section. So this was sort of the attempt at, we recognize and agree with the goal, and it will take more effort to do the full scope. And my wording is probably not exactly perfect there. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the intent.
Totally. I appreciate the discourse. Not speaking from anything other than the lens of the social equity and community engagement, charter that we were given. So we can for sure move on. That was what we took issue with, and I appreciate everyone listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ruth suggested addition of a couple of words that I think I heard others say they support. I think that would add some focus to that simple statement if the co-chairs and others were willing to entertain it. I thought it was a good suggestion.
Repeat the phrase.
Of course, my screen went out just as we were saying that. Let me hang on, I'm back. Oh, now it's gone again. I think I just changed it to clean. Yeah, I thought, I think I just changed it to clean energy. Hang on, where is it? Mitigate and recruitment events on businesses promoting clean energy.
Right.
Okay.
Instead of in the clean energy sector.
Yeah.
I think the phrase about promoting clean energy is really very critical, because not only are we dealing with issues here of financial, but we're dealing with community health in this topic as well. And we know, given the statistics of how plants are arranged in our community, that the burden of poor air quality is mostly felt in the neighborhoods that are underserved. And this has been an issue repeatedly and ongoing in America, not reserved for Wilmington, but it's an ongoing American issue. And I think it needs to be part of any clean energy, because it makes very little sense to have clean buses in dirty factories.
You wouldn't find any disagreement with us. I think that's why the council was very supportive of having a social equity component specifically called out within this endeavor.
Okay. Natalie?
Yes, sir. Can we then move on to looking at, I guess we're at future steps now. And look what David wants us to talk about.
Number of years.
A number of years.
Natalie,
Yes,
just in case, the transportation and fleet operations.
Oh, sorry, I missed that one. I didn't have my glasses on. Sorry. Yes, so transportation and fleet. Anybody have any edits, concerns, suggestions there?
This is Ed Ablard. Telematics is a broader concept than than just automobiles and trucks and so forth. And so I think we ought to say what we're talking about here. We're talking about vehicle telematics every time we are using the word telematics, and it's covered here because we use the word fleet, but elsewhere it's in the document. I noticed telematics is not precisely limited, and so I think it ought to say fleet telematics or vehicle telematics everywhere in the report where it comes up.
Does anybody have any concerns with that change in the report?
Okay.
I would add TDM to acronyms because I don't know what that means.
Okay.
And then I'd also remove encouraging and try to make them all. It reads a little bit weird if you have encouraging there, because then it's encouraging, expanding telework opportunities, that sort of thing. Nothing about the actual items, but
Expansion of.
yeah, encouraging. Yeah, just a better way to word it, because it goes.
Yeah, the grammar. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that point, Sean. I'll work with you, David, on that if you want. That makes sense. Thank you. Anything else there? Okay. Future steps. So, David,
I'm sorry,
do you want?
Natalie? I
Yes,
apologize.
sir.
This is Tom. Someone mentioned actually just write out TDM. Is that what we're going to do? Is just, or leave the TDM in there? I was unclear on what the comment really was.
Do we use the TDM acronym anywhere else in the report? If we do, then we probably need to add a definition. If we don't, maybe we just spell it all out in this space. Sean, would that work for you?
Oh, I mean, I don't have a preference. Yeah, I just saw it and didn't know what it meant. So
can David, you want to explain to Sean?
you don't have to.
Well, you know what, Sean? There are probably other people who just haven't asked the question, so we should all.
I would just say it. Spell it out. Say it.
Yeah, but this is our report, and so we could get asked about this, and so everybody should hear what TDM stands for. And I would tell you, but I can't remember. I know what it is, but I can't remember. So
I wouldn't have a problem. Just spell it out and put quotations. I mean, brackets after it. TDM for those who love acronyms.
Especially since this is your executive summary, and so you really want this one to be where you can read and pick up on it as much as possible.
Right.
And it's transit demand management.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we ready for future steps?
I think we are.
How many years, y'all?
Well, I'd like to hear David and I don't remember seeing Dave. I miss Dave. David and Tom, maybe. I certainly wouldn't want to recommend a number of years that you guys go, holy cow, what's she thinking? And I do want us. I'm an assertive, aggressive kind of girl. I like to get things done. So I also don't want to assume that we have to put 2050 in there. But so David, what are your thoughts on that? David, you're on mute.
And Dave's here also.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, all of these steps to me are ones that either are going to require a lot of collaboration or, much more budget impact to enact. So, I see those kind of going into our capital planning efforts, which I'll refer to Dave and Tom in regard to the kind of the timeframes we're looking at in regard to our capital planning.
So before we go there, and I'm sorry to interrupt Dave and or Tom since I asked you to speak, but then does it have to have an actual number? So I'm thinking the following future steps are recommended actions the city undertake in the future to achieve the clean energy goals. Our goals have timelines. Does that work for you, Tom?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I mean, you could even say in the near term or something like that. So that way, just saying, hey, it's still
I don't think near term works because that's what the first steps is intended to be. I think, but I do think, I mean, we've said under the clean energy goals, we've said we've put years out there, right? We've said 2030 and we've said 2050. And so these are steps that will get us to those goals. So I don't think we need to put a timeline in that paragraph.
I agree.
It can
I
just
agree
read
too. Just leave
undertake.
out, just the city undertake to achieve, leave out in the next number of years.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
I've already
Okay.
changed it.
You've
Awesome.
already changed it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, then let's go back subcommittee like we did it before. I think it's a little bit easier to bite off. So Clean Energy Technology Subcommittee recommendations. Does anybody have any suggestions or concerns about what's included there?
Change IE to EG. Because IE means like a single item, where EG is more of an example.
And just a logistics thing. So, you know, Maddie's got her document on the screen. She's taking some notes, but David has the real document. So if everything doesn't appear on the screen, it doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Okay.
Okay. If not on that, then how about the policy and legislation, the one item listed there? Okay, social equity and community adoption subcommittee items.
Those are fine. Thank you.
I just think that isn't the composting there as well as in the near
It
first
is.
step.
Good catch, Sean.
Well,
I
one
think they're two
was
different ones.
one was a community focused one. This one is more of a municipal.
Okay. Okay.
Can we stop for a second? I saw something that just jumped out at me. No. What I wanted to say to the social equity and community adoption subcommittee, I'm excited about, I shared this with you guys, I guess it was at last month's meeting, that there's work happening in the economic recovery and resiliency work that's going to help fund some of the items that you guys have identified with regard to the energy cost burden, the burden that comes with the need to weatherize and recover from natural disasters. And so there's a new grant that we've applied for that I guess isn't officially public. So, but I wanted to share with you guys because part of what we talked about at that last meeting led us to approach Duke Energy. We're applying for a grant, a federal grant that will come in and help us look at the grid in those areas where power goes down first and stays off longest. What do we need to invest in infrastructure wise that those, and unfortunately it's in very at-risk communities, and what do we need to do to fix that for our neighbors? And so I'm excited about a lot of the things that you guys have put in that report. Thank you for your work. So transportation and fleet operations, any questions or concerns? Or Paul, we can't hear you. There's something funny going on with your audio. Can you type in chat? We don't want to miss what you have to say. I don't mean to make fun, Paul. It sounds like you swallowed a duck this morning. I'm so sorry. Robert's loving it. We're being entertained. I'm so sorry. Paul, can you type in chat? We don't want to miss what you have to say, but we can't hear you. I'm so sorry. Anybody else on Transportation. Paul, why don't you try calling that number that Maddie just posted? That'll give you better audio. You can stay on the video and mute your microphone and then just call that number and you can use your phone for your audio. Anybody else on transportation and fleet recommendations?
Yeah, this is Ed Ablard. I think it's the only substantial thing the city can do, which is to take the existing ZEV technology and apply it as fast as we can in order to make a difference to keep us only adding an additional 0.5 degrees Celsius to our warming. So I don't like the such as example that's given here. I would say we can buy 50% by 2025, 100% by 2030, and be forgiven if the heavy trucks aren't ready by then. But the pickup trucks are almost ready. There are huge numbers of sedans and Porsches and stuff that have zero energy vehicle attached to them. So my such as would read something like 50% by 2025 and 100% by 2030. And the reason I say that is because there's a very good report called the Drawdown Review, which gives a bunch of solutions for the problem of greenhouse gases. And the ones that our city can weigh in on and make a difference with all by itself are very few, a handful. And our transportation fleet operations is the big one. So that's my addition to conversation around this point. Is there any question about what I'm saying?
I don't. Yeah, that's Ron. That's where I was going to go. I don't have any particular questions, but because I haven't spent significant time diving into this, I'd love to hear from members of that subcommittee your thoughts about Ed's suggestions. And then I'd certainly like to hear from staff.
Okay, I'm back. I'm not sure if I'm more clear.
We can hear you. You don't sound like a duck.
I don't know what happens if I'm quiet for too long. It goes into Donald Duck mode.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Well, okay. I logged out and back in. I had a comment on the transportation and fleet ops. The second bullet where it says create parking standards that include EV stations in the zoning code. I would prefer to just expand that to say require that EV charging station infrastructure as a minimum be included in any parking, new parking facilities or parking renovations that the city's responsible for. Actually,
can you clarify, is that city-owned property or is that on all development?
Well, I think it would apply for city-owned because our focus, as I understood it from the beginning, was for city-owned facilities, city-owned vehicles, city-owned buildings, etc.
I think as long as we clarify that it is zoning standards would be on city property only, I could support that change.
Yeah, and not necessarily, I'm not sure if it's zoning standards, but make a requirement one way or the other for any new or renovated city parking facilities to have at least the infrastructure not necessarily the charging stations, because that's not always doable financially, but at least get the infrastructure when the facility is built or renovated, that eases the pain later.
Yeah, I'll add in there, Paul. Just for example, we currently have 2 new construction, one that's just beginning the design phase, and one that's about to. And both of those were looking at not only LEED certification on, but including things like electric vehicle charging for both of those. So it's definitely one of the things we're already talking about. We don't, and including into new projects already. I certainly don't have a problem amending that bullet to include that as part of any new project undertaking. But
okay, and David, I did send you an email. I'm sure you're not checking email during our call here, but this is something that's really easy to do if you're putting in a new facility or renovating. When you're pouring concrete, if you at least have conduit in that'll support wiring, and it's so much easier and cheaper than trying to do it later in a retrofit. That's the point there.
Absolutely, I agree completely.
And when you do this, excuse me, when you do that, make sure there's a record of where you put it. I've dealt with many projects when I was an engineer with the city, some that I put infrastructure in place, and I go back years later and say, we didn't know where that was. You know, it needs to be recorded and known to be recorded if you're going to not install the facility, because and I had a project downtown Wilmington. The first owner wanted to put a mezzanine in, but he couldn't afford it, so I put foundations in place for such a mezzanine. The second owner came in, I didn't know it was there. Spent a whole lot of money, didn't have to spend. So short answer, I like the idea of putting in the infrastructure, but I'd rather them go ahead and do it. But if they're not going to do it, yes, do it, but make sure it is recorded somewhere that is easy access to the next engineer that comes in. Sorry about my
well, and that's more how the city does their business and how they control their projects. That would be separate from this.
Yeah,
PJ, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we want to make sure that we don't make it that thou shall versus thou should, because if you have a parking lot that has 6 parking places and one of them's handicapped, right, and we're putting in infrastructure for 6 parking places, that may not make sense compared to a larger facility. So I would just make sure we don't make it a requirement as much. Don't shoot ourselves in the foot.
Agreed. Thank you.
Well, make it a recommendation then. It should be considered in all cases.
I think Andy was trying to get into.
So to go back to Ed's earlier statement, I think personally, I could agree with that. I think we probably do need to be more aggressive on city fleet. And I believe as an example, I believe the city of Charlotte has put in extra justification steps for any vehicle that's not a zero emission vehicle. That if you're going to order one that is not, you have to get extra approvals on that and justify why you're going that direction. And understand that, yes, we know that police, fire, emergency vehicles are right now not really there, but most passenger and light duty vehicles are pretty close to being there. And certainly we would expect by 2030 they would be there.
Our subcommittee and the Clean Energy Technology Subcommittee put in a provision somewhere, I don't know if it shows up in this or later in the report, but that decisions should be made on fiscal and social response, considering both fiscal and social responsibility. And I think this may be a case where we want to be sure the technology exists in an affordable manner rather than mandate a particular schedule. What if they're not available by that period of time? So I would just, I don't mind being more aggressive, but I just want the availability in a fiscally responsible manner to be considered.
And to add to that, don't forget that we have to have a charging station for each of those vehicles. So that adds to the cost as well.
This is Lindsay. David, do you guys have a calculation for the cost benefit analysis of electric vehicles that considers, like that tries to monetize the impact of greenhouse gas emissions for internal combustion engine vehicles? Like, point, if we're going to talk about fiscal responsibility, some of those, like the externalities of having internal combustion engines, don't get related into that.
Yeah, I know there's several tools out there to use. We have not done that yet for our city fleet. I mean, I believe that's one of the recommendations in here is to do that fleet audit, that fleet right sizing study, which I would hope would include that cost benefit analysis of switching to EVs.
Yeah, we're working on that in the sense of like not making it just about like, or trying to understand, you know, all the savings that you get down the road that might not show up in a present time fiscal analysis, and incorporating those long-term benefits as well, which in the end do usually favor electric vehicles.
Why don't, if I can wordsmith, recommend establish an aggressive schedule for the conversion of the fleet from fossil fuel based ZEV as technology is available, you know, and maybe including, you know, some measures, some percentages after that. But go ahead and stress you want to establish an aggressive schedule based on what's reality is, what's going to be available.
Silence.
No.
Silence is consent.
Yeah. This is Tom. I just want to make sure I understand that statement. A couple of bullets ago, I've been thinking about it. Create a plan and budget to install EV charging stations in city-owned and publicly accessible locations. Is that one and the same? Or is that, so city-owned that are publicly accessible, or is that also any publicly accessible facility? Whether it be city, county, or anybody else. I just want to make sure what the intent is. Again, I apologize.
Well,
City owned, I would think.
I thought our focus was for city-owned facilities, vehicles, etc.
Okay.
So the public accessible locations, I'm not sure where that came from.
That came from me. So you're going to have different places around town where you can charge these, especially if you're going to put like solar panels on them, which is one of our recommendations that needs to be charging during the day. So the publicly accessible was from the Sierra Club, and they're suggesting that they put them at city parks. So not only would city vehicles be able to use them to charge the stations, but also the general public, if that's open, could also do it. And it would encourage the public to also purchase these electric vehicles.
So Kat, I think, if I could, Tom, I think though that city parks are city owned. And I think it's a good point that publicly accessible is a whole lot more than city parks. And so I totally support the position there and the desire there completely, but I think city owned covers that.
Completely agree.
Okay, thanks.
So we can delete publicly accessible?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that, Kat. So where did we land on the goals? Are we good with Ruth's language?
Also.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. Consent, right? Okay. What else? What's the next one? Okay, okay. Ron, take it away.
I'm tickled senseless. Introduction.
Ron,
Yes.
I just want to do a time check. So we're at 7:22. We normally end our meetings at 7:30.
Hello, this is Mayor Sefton.
How you doing, Mayor?
How you doing there, Ron?
We working ourselves silly. We having a good time doing it.
Yes, we are.
I heard you have done some great work, and Tom has shared some of the stuff that you folks have been working on, and it really looks exciting and really looks like you did a great job. And I just want to say to the entire committee, Thank you. And we are going to get some things done here. This is some good stuff, and I really appreciate everybody's hard work in getting this done as quickly as y'all did it in this kind of environment, but I really appreciate it.
But thank you for throwing us in the deep end of the pool. Appreciate that.
Mayor,
Well,
Mayor,
if it was easy, I would have never asked you folks to be doing it.
Mayor, we just asked for a city sanctioned approval that we get together in person when it's safe to do so, and
Yes.
maybe have an adult beverage together or something. I'm not asking for the city to pay for that, just to approve it's okay.
Yes.
I'll pay for it. How about that one?
We'll take you up on that, Mayor.
Mayor, this is being recorded.
It's being recorded. We got you on the record.
Well, it's the least I could do, and I think I could find some good brew around here somewhere. I think we've got more than 17 breweries. I think I could find somewhere where I can buy you all one beer. I think that's okay.
Awesome. That sounds great, Mayor. Thank you so much for your support and encouragement along the way.
Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate it. Y'all did a phenomenal job with this, and we're looking forward to start implementing some of this stuff immediately. And I know Tom has been sharing a lot of that information, but thank y'all for staying the course and doing this. This is important for the community and for the city, and we need to lead the way in this community and in this region. And hopefully we'll all get there together. But I appreciate everybody's hard work in this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. So Ron and Natalie, just time check wise, we've got about 5 minutes before some people might be falling off the call. So maybe we could just ask, I think we went through the meat of the hard stuff. Are there any other sections where folks have things that they'd like to comment on?
I had one thing it's just a structure thing, which is always time consuming and tricky, but since these were written as 4 separate things, there are certain terms that are introduced multiple times, like greenhouse gases. So typically, like we were saying in the executive summary, everything's kind of spelled out, but then in the bulk of the report, the first time it's mentioned, then it's written out with the parentheses and have GHG after that. But I think almost all of our subcommittees introduce greenhouse gases and put parentheses GHG. So it takes a while, but to do like a search and find, and just to make sure everything's introduced once and it's introduced the first time that it's written, will make it read a lot better.
Yep, I can take care of that, Matt.
Yeah. It's not a fun task, but thank you.
Sean, you had something?
Well, I mean, we're not going through the document anymore, but I think this electricity generation mix, number one, the graph's really hard to read. I can't tell which, I don't know if you want to post it, but it seems like there's 11 different energy sources and I only can really see 7 and I can't tell which is which. You can get a clear one. Also, is it true that the Duke's getting rid of all their hydropower? The majority of Duke's hydropower?
No, this is DEP.
Okay.
This isn't Duke Energy.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
But they do have, if you do look at their IRP, their integrated resource plan, in out years for Duke Energy as a company, they do have some tidal hydro in the back end of their plan.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure that statement was correct.
Your Honor, I'd like to, I'm in the wrong courthouse here. I'd like to move for continuance. Mr. Sparks, and I picked out the 30th of December as a resume on this thing. That would be my request. at this point. My motion.
So I would ask, thank you for that, Ed, and I appreciate that because we are at 7:28. I would like to ask how many more suggestions, concerns, how many folks, if you could, can we go off share screen for a minute, Maddie, so we can see almost everybody just for a minute to try to settle this? Thank you. Let's show a thumbs up in the emojis if you have things you want to talk about in the report tonight.
What was the question?
So but Sean, I don't want to cut you off. So if you're not finished, that I want you to put the emoji thumbs up in there. But if we're there, Ed, we're so close. So close. And honestly, I can't do December 30th. I appreciate that as a motion, but I can't do December 30th. I can't do the rest of this year. And we are trying to meet a city council timeline. And so if we're this close, give me a show of thumbs as to how many people can stick around for maybe another 10 to 15 minutes. Emoji or real thumb. Thank you.
I got 2 of them.
Okay, Ed, I hope that's okay with you that we've not taken up your motion. We kind of did, but not directly. So we can try to get through this. And again, if you have some significant conversations you want to have about the report, then maybe you're right and we should find a way. So please speak up if you do, but I hope we can get this done in 10 to 15.
You also want me to vote on it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, boy.
There will be, these, I would say, editorial cleaning up the document that'll go on, and I'll certainly resend it out after all of those changes and some of the notes that I've taken down that people wanted.
Tom, talk to us about timing then. And David, if we, because I appreciate your concerns and I don't want to wake up after we voted and see something in here I didn't want to see either. So I appreciate the point. Tom, tell us what could be some processes where we could vote in theory with what we've looked at and talked about tonight, and then vote on a final. Because I don't disagree with that. I want to read every word of this report before it's final, and I suspect others do as well.
Well, let me comment on what I can be. Our desire was to bring this report as a presentation to council before their next budget work session, which is scheduled for January 22nd. So, because we know that we're approaching the 50-yard line so in a budget development in terms of the broad elements, and the time to introduce some components that may have a budgetary impact is better early than later. Our agenda deadline to prepare things for the January 19th meeting really is this week. And so I'm accustomed to the staff fussing at me about sending my stuff late, but they really do take me to the woodshed and beat the heck out of me. They call me late every day Moten. And so this one, David will be submitting it into the queue about 2 weeks late. And it was our desire to give the council at least about 7 to 10 days to read it, so that they could be at least 7 days to read it. So working backwards, we wanted to at least have it to the council around the 7th or 8th, somewhere around there. And if this group feels that another meeting, and David, you feel like you can still accomplish the work and tweak what you need to have it in the system. And it could be that one way to do it is we could put a preliminary draft in the council packet. I can check with the city attorney on that one. And we could send out the whatever's latest if we miss that deadline, the deadline, we can send it out later. I agree. We don't want you to feel rushed into signing off on it. We can make ourselves available, or maybe Fountain Works knows of some creative ways that a vote can occur without all of us having to necessarily assemble at one time if it was posted and be able to sign off.
So help
Maybe
me,
there's-
a follow-up question, Tom. So tell me when is the drop dead date of a vote of our task force for a report to meet all of the deadlines to be in the packet for the 19th meeting?
Dave Mays, what do you think?
You're muted.
We
Dave.
can't hear you. He's not muted. I don't know why we can't hear him. Chat it. Can you chat it for us, Dave? Put it in the chat.
Yeah, it's going to be driven largely by Dave Ingram and Dave Mays doing the work they need to do to get it to the point where I can review it and sign off on it, and then others.
I think we can go ahead and proceed to a conclusion. I think we killed enough time already talking about should we proceed. We could have wrapped this thing up.
So I know, Natalie, when you said, does anyone have any other comments? I think Matt had something, and I think Sean might still have something. If we could hear from those,
that may help.
We could do a preliminary vote as of today, sort of pending those other changes, and then can have people send any other comments to us, probably to David Ingram, and then have the final document sent around and have people email a final vote of approval. I think
That's going to cause discussion. If we send out, how many people we have? Almost 30 people. We send it out and 10 people have a comment, then we're going to really need to engage with each other to resolve issues that we may see the comments and say, how did that get in the report? And then we should have engaged to discuss that item. I think we can, it's 7:35 now. I haven't eaten dinner, haven't taken my pills yet, but I think we can go ahead and kill this thing tonight without trying to stretch it out into infinity. In a nice way.
So I'd suggest we hear from Matt real quick, since he said that he had comments.
So what I was going to bring up, just kind of followed up, was the point with figure 1, where it can be hard to read. I'm pretty sure a lot of our figures are actually pulled from other items. So I think the tables are created, but so what we have labeled as, it's the second table 3. I think it should be figure 3.
Page?
Page 15.
Okay.
So it's a graph about fuel consumption history for the city. And so I don't know if that was created for this or if it was pulled for something else. But I had put a question in my edits of, is there significance to the different shades of blue? Or was it just a color scheme? Does that mean anything? And so when we're pulling tables or figures from other reports, like figure 1 is from, I believe, the Duke IRG, we need to make sure that that is referenced where we're pulling it from. And then so that way, if there are any questions about it, say, this is pulled from here, wasn't generated and created by our task force.
Can we make a recommendation that as a committee, we give the authority to the staff to make, technical changes, add references to all the data that's collected? The fact that 2 things are named table 3, that needs to be obviously changed. I don't know that we need to go through it item by item if we can give them the authority to make those kinds of changes.
I concur with that one.
Yeah, I agree.
Matt, were there other comments you had, Matt?
No, that was the main stuff. I just kind of want to make sure that stuff was properly referenced, so it doesn't look like we created that information if someone else did. But I was curious if there is any importance to the different shades of blue and white.
No, Matt, no difference. Just me trying to be creative and make it look nice.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
And Sean, did you have any other comments? you're on mute.
Yeah, I don't think it's important that I go over now. I can try to just add some comments and send it along. You can choose to take them or leave them.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be
yeah.
great, Sean. Just send anything my way.
Yeah, I'll try to put it in the document so maybe it's easy. But with so many people, it's kind of hard to accept changes or something like that. I don't know how you would do it quickly. But yeah, you can read them if there's ones that seem more important than others, and tackle the bigger items first. It's not a ton, but just comments and small comments.
Sure, sure.
And did anyone else have any comments before
One
we?
minor suggestion, and I had sent to David, just a reference maybe in the history section. And y'all know I think most of you know I worked in the nuclear field. I just think this community is so tied to nuclear energy, and advanced nuclear energy is the future for the foreseeable future for carbon-free baseload energy production. We are the world headquarters for GE Hitachi Nuclear Energy. And while it is just outside the city border, it does influence our community greatly. So I think maybe just in the history, acknowledging that we have depended on, if you look at the fuel mix, we've depended on nuclear energy for quite a long period of time. So just a recognition that as we move forward in advanced nuclear, it's here in our hometown. We should acknowledge it somewhere in the report.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Thank you. Would you, Ruth, be willing to maybe suggest some language that could be used and shared for that?
Certainly, and I think it can go in the history section easily, or somewhere in that introduction. So it's not. I don't know if what I write in my email to you earlier.
Yeah,
that's perfect, Ruth. If you'll just
okay, the answer is okay.
Yeah, yeah.
She did send something earlier this afternoon, so I can take another look at that for the history section.
Yeah, and I think just it's something along the lines of the Wilmington area is home to a global leader in advanced nuclear, which is a critical component of our carbon-free future. I don't know, make it up as I go along.
So Ron, you want to have a vote?
Yes, I do.
All right.
I'd like to entertain a motion to accept this report with the changes that have been discussed to be given to David.
Can we go back to full screen again, please? Thank you, Maddie.
And we all can fit on a screen. We've got a poll question if you want to answer that way, or we can have a show of hands or motion as Ron is doing.
I like the use of the poll.
Okay.
Warren, can you launch the poll? For some reason, I edited the poll question. It was not appearing as I edited it.
There you go.
This is Andy. I'll second the motion.
Appreciate that.
Perfect.
If your poll is on your screen, I'd like for you to click your response.
It came up with mine and I responded.
And
Not
the
wasting any time.
And the yes is with the caveat that the staff will make these technical corrections and others that we discussed.
Understood, right. As we discussed, yes.
And then I'm assuming once these corrections are made and everything sent out to us, that we're not to share any of this until after the city council meeting. So the city council can do it first before any, hey, so we can send it out to our own groups of people to make sure as many people in the community sees it. I'm assuming we want to wait till after the city gets a chance to look at it. So I just kind of wanted that to be verbally stated because I see that's how you do it.
Yes, we don't want that. We don't want the whole world to see this report before city council sees it. That's not appropriate.
Yeah.
All right.
So it becomes public when they get it. So it'll be out there. So we need to respect the process. Thanks, Matt.
So we'll go ahead and end the poll, and we will share the results here.
100%. That's awesome.
Okay.
This was
All
such a
right.
great experience. The work that's been done, you guys, those of you who worked really hard on your subcommittees, it's greatly appreciated, and will contribute to the work that David and their teams, and as well as a potential future advisory committee. So know that your work will be appreciated for a really long time. I'm really glad to have gotten to know some of you better, and certainly know faces now that when I run into you in the community, we'll be able to reflect upon this success. And I hope to see many of you in person soon. Please get the vaccine.
When the mayor buys us a beer.
Right.
That's right. We're gonna have to hold them to that. Okay, very good. All minds clear?
Here.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you
thanks,
guys
everyone.
for co-chairing. Appreciate
Enjoyed it.
you
Yeah.
guys' work.
Thank you,
Staff,
everybody,
thank
for
you.
your hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays,
Happy
Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, everybody. And stay safe. Love your family. Stay away from them.
You can still do the Run From Your Family's Rotary race to help us raise money for Honor Flight, by the way. Just putting in a plug there. Isn't that a clever name? Run From Your Family.
I like that.
I like it. I like it. All right. Very good. Thank you all.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Bye. Good night, everyone.